Hello, hello, welcome to episode 2 of Crime UnWined with Aixa and Denise. Welcome back. We're excited to have you again. We're gonna deep dive into some real stuff, so
I definitely want to give you guys warning and a heads up. So our next conversation is going to dive into sensitive territory, including a detailed discussion and content that involves rape, sexual assault, sexual violence. So if you feel like this isn't for you, it's totally okay to just keep scrolling past us.
all right, well, with that being said, on a lighter note, we are going to introduce the wine of the day. The wine of the day comes from Mark and Val's Wines. They are a local black-owned business, very, very amazing couple. So what began as a hobby of winemaking in their basement turned into having an actual location. Their location is 1205 East Philadelphia Street. This is a location where they have their tasting rooms. You can go ahead and book events, which I'm hoping one day in the future to be able to experience that. I know that you and I have purchased quite a few flavors. They do have a wide variety of options from whites to red, so I don't think that you guys will be disappointed. The one that we have today is called Diablo Rojo, which I love the name. So it's a mix of Noble and Grenache wines. So Noble is said to be sweet, deep, and thick, and the Grenache, it's a lighter red, so making this combination like just the perfect cup of wine. So wait, salud.
I always gotta have myself. I can't help it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is good.
Yeah, so definitely go and support Mark and Val. Their website is online. They also are at Penn Market every weekend, but they're a very, very beautiful couple. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this. Like Aisa said, this is a very, very heavy, not the reggaeton on the background. This is a very heavy episode. But our guy his name is Harvey Miguel Robinson. He was said to be the first serial killer and the youngest serial killer in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
One of the youngest serial killers in American history.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
His murders took place when he was 17, 18. But before I get into Harvey, I want to touch base on his upbringing.
Okay.
His father was named Harvey Rodriguez. I'm not sure. They said he was a jazz musician from York, but he was said to be abusive. He was said to have, he would beat on his wives and mistresses. So 40 years before his son murders took place, Father Harvey was actually convicted of voluntary manslaughter. He and girlfriend back then was 27-year-old Mistress Marlene Perez. When investigators arrived to Marlene's home, they found her unrecognizable. He literally beat her into a pulp. They found Marlene naked on the couch, covered in blood, and it looked like with a blunt object, he beat her to the point where when they found her, it was like black blood all over the place. When cops questioned him, of course, father denied everything. He had said that him and his friend went to the girlfriend's or the mistress's house and nobody opened and the door was locked, so they broke in, and that they found Perez that way. The friend definitely gave it a whole other side of the story. He pretty much confessed to everything, saying that, Father Harvey showed up, he saw her, kicked her head in. Eventually, Harvey was sentenced to 7 to 12 years in state prison for voluntary manslaughter.
So he beat his girlfriend to death.
To death. Literally to death. 3 years after his release, that's when he would meet Harvey's Harvey's son's mother, Barbara Brown, which was 20 years his junior. They hit it off and would later give birth to a son, Harvey Miguel Robinson. At 2 years old, his mother would end up leaving father Harvey because of abuse.
Yeah.
So, as she should. But what's interesting is that I feel like for voluntary manslaughter, they gave him 7 to 12 years in prison. Had he been given a heavier sentence, Harvey would have never been born.
Oh, that's a good point.
Harvey would have never been born.
That's a good point.
But, they got together, he got what he got, and that's the beginning of this monster. So, again, back to Harvey, the son. Obviously, he did grow up in a troubled family. The dynamics were pretty abusive.
Seeing his father being so abusive,
he loved him,
and knowing, he idolized him.
Absolutely,
he wanted to be just like him.
Yep, he loved him. So, again, remember I said that kind of touches base on what you said last episode: nature versus nurture.
So this is 1 point for nurture. Huh?
Exactly, which is All right, so Robinson did grow up in a troubled family environment. We had already discussed and touched on his father. His father was an abusive alcoholic that was arrested for voluntary manslaughter. Robinson, in school, was said to be known an athlete. He was an athlete. He was a good student. He even went on to win awards for some essays.
Yes, for writing.
For that he wrote, yeah. However, with all of that, he kind of had a dark side. Even when he was young, he went and got arrested for shoplifting at 9. And then would continue committing petty crimes throughout his youth. It wasn't until about 1989 he was sent to a residential reform program because he was convicted of assault.
Yes. So it seems as though school counselors also kind of diagnosed him with having severe conduct disorder. So he, from early on,
tantrums. If he didn't get his way, it was an issue. But also he hated any form of authority.
Yes.
He didn't like to be told what to do. And he enjoyed people fearing him.
Absolutely. The teachers were terrified of him, and he liked that.
Yeah, he liked it. But that being said, let's go ahead and get into these victims.
Oh man, so at 17, so prior to this, he was getting in trouble for petty theft and burglary. So it seems as though he had a theme here. So he liked to break in and steal and take what wasn't his, apparently. So August 5th of 1992, 17-year-old Harvey Robinson here, he broke into a house of a woman who lived alone. She came home after taking her friend home, and she noticed that several things were amiss. There was a fan that she left on that was turned off. There was a door that she left open that was closed. I mean, nothing really seemed out of place except maybe $50 that was missing out of her drawer. Well, this lady was actually said to be Joan Berghart. Joan, again, she called the police, reported the burglary. Now, a few days later, Joan's neighbor called the police and reported that Joan's stereo or radio had been playing for days on end, 3-4 days.
Super loud, blaring music.
Super loud, and a few days prior, she had heard some noise coming from Joan's apartment that sounded like a scuffle, some kind of a fight, and heard Joan screaming. She called the police. Police arrived to Joan's house, and noticed a few things were off here. Her front screen and back screen were taken off of the windows. They went in and found Joan in her living room, face down. So it turns out that Harvey, which they didn't know it was Harvey at this time, found Joan not alive, and it seemed as though she was bludgeoned to death. After further examination, they determined she was hit at least 37 times in the head. Found blood all over her couches, her walls, but again, nothing was out of place. Everything else seemed to be neat except for the blood that was surrounding her body here. Now, they did find blood and hair that all seemed to belong to Joan, except for semen stains that were on a pair of shorts that were, of course, belonging to a male, which they would later use to identify Harvey.
And did you like catch where it said that Joan was beaten so hard that the force of the blows had caused embedded hair
Oh,
between
yes.
the fracture and the skull.
I did.
Like, that's crazy.
I did. A bit of overkill.
Yeah, exactly.
If you ask me.
Exactly.
Yep. Now, Joan was sexually assaulted. They did realize she was raped. And again, those semen stains were found on those shorts and were helpful later on. So after killing Joan, he was looking for victim number 2, but he was arrested for burglary, and he was caught, and he spent 3 months in prison. So again, he had an MO.
Exactly.
He liked to break in. He burglarized homes. It seems as though maybe this
And
time
terrorized.
no one was home this time, but he was caught during this one burglary, and he did spend time in prison.
Brings us to victim number 2. It was a 15-year-old girl by the name of Charlotte Schmoyer. She was a neighborhood newspaper delivery girl, and there was I don't know if it was a neighbor or one of the people that received
The
the
residents,
news.
absolutely.
Yeah, the newspaper. We're concerned because she was always
Prompt
and they would get their newspaper on time. So a resident became suspicious when the normally punctual newspaper delivery girl Charlotte Schmoyer failed to deliver the newspaper. They did find her newspaper cart left unattended. It was approximately for about 30 minutes in front of a neighbor's house. And the newspaper had been delivered to another neighbor, but not the resident that called the cops.
Okay.
So when they seen that kind of sparked like, okay, where is she at?
Yeah.
So obviously they did call the cops, and upon the cops' arrival, they did find the unattended cart half filled with the day's newspaper, and then a separate copy of the newspaper somewhere else. They also found her Walkman, and her Walkman and headset were separated.
Oh man. Okay.
So it almost looked like there was a struggle. These were found between 2 houses. There was also finger streaks on the window pane of the door to a nearby garage of one of the houses.
Okay.
So again, police concluded that a struggle had ensued and Schmoyer had been abducted. Later that day, they did do a search in a heavily wooded area, I guess around the East Side Reservoir. I'm not familiar with Allentown, but it sounds as if it's a heavily wooded, a lot of trees, a lot of debris. And the police found a bloody trail that led them to the body of Charlotte Schmoyer, buried beneath some logs.
Some logs, that's
Yep.
what I read. Yeah.
Her sweatshirt was slightly pulled up. Her sweatpants and underpants had been pulled down towards her knees. She had a large gaping wound in her throat, separate stab wounds below the gash, and multiple stab wounds on her back, and a patterned bruise on the right side of the cheek.
Oof. I read it was about 22 stab wounds.
And
or something
an
along those
autopsy
lines.
revealed that it was 22 stab wounds, 16 in the back, including 7 that were the fatal hits, and 6 in the front area of the neck. There were scrapings and cuttings, indicating that these cuts and scrapes were happening while she was still alive. So she was definitely trying to protect herself. You could see those wounds.
15 years old.
Yeah. And then again, later, serology and DNA tests indicated that Schmoyer had also been sexually assaulted. There was DNA found on her vaginal swab, and his blood along with his hair was found on her sweatshirt, sweatpants along the trail leading to her body, and leaves at the crime near her head.
But yet still no name.
No
to
name
this
to
DNA.
Yep.
Oof.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, this man was definitely angry. Definitely showed issues. And just to get a little bit more deeper, after that, on June 20th, Robinson had went to, apparently he was stalking this woman. So he had already plans to go into the
I was
home
watching her.
to rape and kill her. The day that he managed to get into the house, he was startled with the fact that her boyfriend was laying right next to her. So this monster, I guess with the need to start or to finish what he had in his mind, went into the woman's 5-year-old daughter's room.
Oh man.
Took her from the bed, raped, and choked her. His intent was to kill. However, he did strangle her until she became unconscious, but thank God did not kill this little girl.
So he left her for dead.
He left her for dead. He left her for dead.
And that was June 20th?
That was June 20th, and he was later convicted of raping and trying to kill the 5-year-old girl. And the 5-year-old was able to identify him.
Oof, wow.
So that alone must have been so traumatizing.
For her?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. A few days later, June 28th, Denise Sam Cali was home alone. It seems her husband was away on a trip, sleeping in her bed, and she heard noises coming from her walk-in closet, which woke her up. When she heard the noises, she got up to see what it was, and there was Harvey waiting to attack.
In the closet? Was he in the closet?
He must have been, if she heard the noises coming from the closet.
Yeah.
So Denise actually managed to run out of the house, of course, put up a fight, got out of the house. Now, Harvey unfortunately was able to catch her out on her front lawn, wrestled her down, fought her, punched her in her face.
In public.
In public,
This
yes.
was outside.
This was outside. Beat her, and he did manage to sexually assault her. Now Denise's screams woke her neighbor, who came out and startled Harvey. So he ran back through the house and out her back door. So of course Denise did call the police and was able to identify her assailant. So despite Harvey almost being caught by this neighbor, he broke into another house a month later.
Yeah. Yep. Month later? No, I think it was 2 weeks later. For Jessica Jean Fortney. That's the victim number 4. Again, Jessica Jean Fortney, 47. So approximately 2 weeks later, shortly after 7 a.m. on July 14th, 1993, Jessica, who resided with other family members in an Allentown East Side apartment, was found dead in her bed. She was half naked, just like all the other ones that they had found. Her shorts and underpants were pulled down midway, between her knee and groin area, around only one thigh. They found her with her face swollen and black. She had dried blood on her lips, eyes, nose, nostrils, and neck. There was blood splatter on the wall directly behind the sofa, and on the lampshade next to the sofa. The window on the first floor was open, so that was his entry.
So he definitely has an MO.
Absolutely.
At this point, there is no doubt that it's one man, causing all this turmoil.
Jessica did end up dying by suffocation, by strangulation. There were more than 50 different injury patterns. Wow. Many of them compatible with being beaten by a closed fist to the face. He had a ring that he would wear, so there was actual indentations on her body from this ring.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Harvey's next move, it seems, was to return to Denise Sam Cali's house. She survived his attack, so I think he wanted to finish the job, or at least try to finish the job. Now, after the first attack, Denise and her husband set up a security system.
Yeah.
They were scared. Of course, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
July 18th, it seems as though Denise heard someone trying to come in through the door. She heard the door open, which set off the alarm. So in setting off the alarm, of course, he fled. So from that night on, the police did determine that they were going to actually set up surveillance and stay at Denise's house to see if he would come back. And it paid off. July 31st, he did try to come back.
Yep.
So officers inside the house, of course, noticed Harvey trying to come back in, try to break in through a window. Or was it through the door?
No, it was through the window. Yeah.
Noticed him trying to break back in through the window. Now gunfire ensued between the officers and Harvey, so he had a gun this time. Yeah. He had a gun.
It was the gun that he stole from Sam Cali.
From Denise, yes, her 380. Husband. Yes, which did go missing from the first time their house was burglarized. Gunfire, they exchanged gunfire. Police heard rummaging in the back, so it seems as though Harvey actually fled. He fled through the back, was able to get away, but he was injured.
Yeah. I think that was when the cops, they called all the hospitals because they definitely knew that he was injured. Hurt. There was a lot of blood.
He was hurt. They knew he was hurt.
Yeah.
And one of the hospitals did confirm. Yep.
And called.
Did, yes,
and
absolutely.
Called, and that's how he was caught.
Yep. Did confirm. He definitely went in there. So Harvey went into the hospital looking to get treatment for his wounds. He had fresh bleeding wounds to both of his arms and legs. He had a healing scar from a bite mark from several weeks ago, or several weeks before, from Denise, which, again, she was trying to fight him off in her front lawn the first time he attacked her. Then they went over to his house after, they were able to apprehend him at the hospital.
Yeah.
Went over to his house.
Found black ski mask, gloves.
That 380.
The 380 was there. Had a rugby type shirt in the laundry full of blood. Just things that would indicate like this is this is our guy.
He did it, absolutely. Yeah. There was no denying. So he definitely had all these items in his home, and of course were used in his trial as evidence.
Yep. They actually, Robinson was suspected of also attempting to kill another girl, Leslie Gerhardt. She was a 13-year-old girl in 1990. So this was
before his first victim.
Yeah, she was 13 and apparently had a friend staying over for the evening. An intruder removed the screen, got into the window and began beating her with a brick.
With a brick?
With a brick. He was scared off when the friend started. So, yeah, the friend started screaming, so he panicked and he left. Leslie escaped with a fractured skull and shattered hand. He was suspected of stalking via telephone and in person for weeks prior to the attack. So this is definitely his MO. He likes to stalk, and he likes to enter
through the
window, and really just beat them to a freaking pulp. Like, this is a lot of anger coming from this
man.
Yeah, like.
So is it a control thing? Is it?
I don't understand. You know, a few times when I was reading this, you know, I thought, does he really hate women?
Wow. Or did he idolize his father so much?
So much that he wanted to.
And abusing these women the way he did. I mean, his father did the same thing.
Yeah.
So again, 1 point for nurture.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I mean, he was diagnosed with having that conduct disorder, so that's another
genetics or whatever the hell it is.
So we've got one for nature, one for nurture. I mean, I don't know. Again, that's an argument for another day. But
he was never Robinson's first victim, although he has never been charged with attempted murder. So they're saying that he was linked. So they don't even have enough evidence to charge him. So it was a total of 6 that they have linked to him with 3, 4.
So it was 3 confirmed.
3 confirmed.
2 survived.
Yes.
And then
total of 6 that he was.
And then that 1990, the Leslie, that's 6. So what happened during his interview before we get into the trial?
So the police interviewed Robinson on August 4th. At the time, Robinson told the cops that he did drive. Oh, because apparently they asked him if he was driving his mom's car, which was a Ford Tempo. It was a 4-door blue Ford Tempo automobile, and I believe that's the one that they pulled him over in.
For the speeding ticket.
So that's why they asked him that, and he said that he never drove his mom's car, but that obviously was a lie, being that they gave you a ticket at that time. It says, in fact, at approximately 3:45 on September 7th, a little less than 1 month after Burghardt's death, an Allentown police officer made a traffic stop of the blue Ford Tempo that Robinson was operating. So obviously that was just a bold-faced lie.
He was stopped, and he was almost caught several times.
Several.
He went to prison for burglary. He did some time, and then he was pulled over for speeding. They let him go, just gave him a ticket. I mean, but I guess technology at this time wasn't as advanced as it is today. And they probably at that point didn't have a name linked to that DNA that was found just yet. But God, like He slipped through their fingers
So many times.
so many times. So many times. So at trial, he was sentenced to death for his crimes. But he filed appeal after appeal after appeal, and after all those filings, they did overturn 2 of his death convictions just because the U.S. Supreme Court did deem death sentences for juveniles unconstitutional.
Exactly.
So they did overturn 2 of those. But in 2013, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court upheld his death penalty in Jessica Fortney's murder. So he's still on death row to this day. So yes, one stuck, luckily.
Yep. Yep, U.S. Supreme Court ruled, to prohibit death penalties for juveniles. Which I mean, how do you feel about that? I feel like if you kill, does it matter how old you are?
I don't know. I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted just because there's still so much information about, juveniles' brains and development and right from wrong. But
no, I could see that if it was like a 10-year-old. But this man was 17.
He was
18.
17.
He was damn near an adult.
17,
you know what I mean? So
and one time is a mistake.
It's a mistake, yep.
But 2-3 times that's a habit, and that's just it's who you are. And unfortunately, this is who he was. This is what he did.
Yeah. So apparently he is currently incarcerated in the state prison in Great Ford, Montgomery County, which I believe it is in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Pennsylvania State.
Mm-hmm. Oh man.
So, yeah. I mean, this episode definitely like had me all over the freaking emotion. It was. Yeah.
It's hard.
It was heavy.
Hard to take in.
It was heavy. It was heavy. It was heavy.
It was.
But at the end of the day, he is where he belongs, and in spite of him trying to have those, overturned or have those lessened, he's not going anywhere.
I hope not.
And I just feel for all the family members that were affected, of all the victims.
I do too.
Because that is definitely a hard pill to swallow.
It caused a lot of hurt.
Oh yeah,
a lot. Well, thank you for joining us. Join us again for our episode 3. We look forward to it.
So before we say our goodbyes, I do want to give a shout out to Tiffany Watson. She is a local small business owner. She does stuff like with the vinyls, with the glasses and t-shirts, and she makes keychains, and she makes cute little pens. And she did make our shirts for today. So shout out to you, Tiffany, and thank you so much for hooking us up with some shirts. Make sure to go ahead and get your wine from Mark and Bow. And as always, we hope that you enjoyed this episode, and
see you next time.
See ya.